Hello, welcome to Everyday Ordinary Extraordinary Men. I am Martina and I'm here with Christina.
Hello, everyone.
And we created this podcast because we're thinking about the relationships between men and women, right? So the context for the podcast is most humans have a lot of preconceived notions and stereotypes about gender. For example, men are tough and silent and forceful, or women are chatty and manipulative and emotional. And what happens when we do that is we put people in a box, and often then we forget to see beyond the labels. And if someone is not fitting the mold, we might call them like a tomboy or a sissy. And those and similar labels often cause a lot of discord. So, what will the world look like where we go beyond our preconceived notions and understand that we are much more than our gender? That humans are strong and soft and gentle and deep and powerful and tough and fierce and open, and that qualities are not specific to a gender, that we all have all qualities available to express. What will the world look like where we all are free to be who we choose to be and express all of our emotions? When we allow ourselves to express the so-called masculine and feminine qualities within ourselves, we set ourselves free. And when we allow others to do the same, when we accept all of them, we create synergy, peace, and harmony. Sorry, I need to cough. So today we're here with Mark. And welcome, Mark. Do you want to tell us who you are? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm a retired physician. I was a surgeon, general surgeon and gastroenterologist in New York for about 45 years. I'm married with 3 children, several grandchildren. I went to school actually in Bern, Switzerland for 6 years back in the late 60s, 1967 till 1973. And I got my Doctor of Medicine there. And I returned to the United States and started my residency and eventually my practice. And that's who I am, basically. I have a lot of hobbies and interests, and I guess we'll explore that as we speak.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you know, Mark, I don't know you that much. I know you through your wife. And what always struck me about you is your sweetness. There's like a generosity of spirit that I experience when I'm with you. And I just really, really love that about you.
Well, that's very sweet. It's interesting. I was not all. I was a very difficult child. I have to tell you this. I was a very, and it's funny because I was with one of my cousins last night at dinner, and he was telling me everybody at the table about what a crazy young man I was when I was a kid. I was always getting into trouble. I would be the one in school who would, back in those days, there were inkwells, and I would pull the girl's hair in front of me and dip it in the inkwell, do silly things like that. And I would immediately be sent to the principal's office. I would be destroying people's toys and stuff. And I was constantly getting into mischievous trouble. Nothing bad, but that was me when I was a kid. And my family always thought, oh my God, this kid forget it. He's going to be, they used to call me, we are Jewish. So in Yiddish, they used to call me Michigan Mark, crazy Mark. Where is this kid ever going to end up? He's like wild. My cousin said, you must have had ADD before they knew how to diagnose ADD. And over the years, I did all kinds of silly things like that. Nothing, I never hurt anybody. But I came to realize, that there was silly stuff that I was doing. And I gradually matured to realize I want to help people. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable or sad or do crazy things. And that's kind of how I evolved. So, and everybody kind of looks at me and goes, oh, you agree to everything. You're never argumentative. You try to, yes, everybody to death. I said, well, I do to an extent. I try not to see the worst in people. I try to see what their positive sides are. And, you know, that's just how I evolved as a person. You know, that.
So two things there, Mark. So I'd say
Yeah.
with 45 years of being a surgeon, I'd say you pretty
Yeah.
much devoted your life to being of service to people.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about the piece when you were speaking to about that, noticing that you were that crazy, mischievous kid and then chose that to do something different. Was there like something specific that happened that
I don't
that
know.
woke you up to see like, oh, I don't want to be that way anymore?
Yeah, I kind of felt at some point in my life, you know, I don't want people to look at me like I'm a crazy person, that you know, I have no, uh, that I don't aspire to anything in life. And it's strange because when I was a kid, everybody thought I was very smart. They said, "You're a very smart boy, but we don't know why you're acting so crazy." I made SP in school. I was like, you skipped a grade, and that kind of affected me as well because I was always the youngest person in the grade. So when I was, say, in beginning high school, I was one of the youngest kids in my 10th year, what they, I guess, call middle school. No, that would be high school. Anyway, I would be like one of the youngest people there. And that affected me socially too, with my contacts with women. You know, I was very shy. You know, it was very hard for me to interact with girls and everything. And that all of that, you know, I think had an effect on me. And so that when I finally went to college, I realized, you know, I have to break out of this shell. You know I'm the youngest, one of the youngest, and people sometimes make fun of me, or I don't want to say bully because it really wasn't that, but they just thought I was a wild kid. And I didn't apply myself as I should have. My parents were always on my case about, you know, what are you going to do? I wanted to go to law school. My father said, "You're crazy. You can't do that. There are so many poor lawyers. You have to look for something more important." I said, "Dad, okay, can I be an astronaut?" You know, I like space. He said, "Stop with the crazy talk. You know, apply yourself. You like science, maybe try something in the science field." And actually, that was true. I did enjoy that, and I eventually went to majored in biology in college. And I didn't go. One of the reasons I ended up going not to an American school, other than the Vietnam War, because even though I was kind of smart, I didn't apply myself in high school as I should have. I was too busy playing sports, watching television, just trying to be a kid. And by the time it came to apply to college, I didn't get into the best universities. I went actually to Long Island University in Brooklyn, which is a decent school, but it's not a top-notch school. And there I started to, my grades were actually excellent. I was always, B plus A and everything. But coming from that school was very difficult for me to get into a school in the United States. And I interviewed in a few good schools in Louisiana, in Tulane, and a few other schools. And they said, you have good grades and everything, but, we're looking for blah, blah, blah. And so that was that, that kind of simulated me. Okay, now I really got to try harder. And, wherever I go, I got to make it. So that's kind of how I evolved from that's me today. I just, I'm a little more laid back. My wife always thinks you're too laid back. You're too, you're not confrontational. You don't get into things with people. You back off even when you should be, I said, yeah, but so that's sort of my personality.
So you said that you probably had ADD undiagnosed.
Yeah.
Was it ADD, or was it that you were just so smart that you were just bored out of your mind?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Because
it could be part of that. I think my form of ADD was more of the what they call hyperactivity, AHDD. Where
yeah,
I was a hyperactive kid. I mean, I was all over the place, breaking things, getting into trouble. And I'm talking when I was, 12, 13, 15. My cousin was telling me, we used to go on the subway when we were young teenagers, and I would start singing in the trains, and hanging from the straps and, just making a total nuisance of myself. And everybody was so embarrassed. I just couldn't sit still. I couldn't sit still. One time when I was in during the summer, we used to go to what they call bungalow colonies where families stayed for the summer. And there was a hotel nearby that had a famous band, not a famous band, but a house band. And one evening we snuck into the hotel and the band started singing on stage. And within 10 minutes, I jumped up on stage with the guy who was the lead singer. And to my surprise, he didn't throw me off. He actually grabbed me, and because I was singing, and he said, "Come on," and then that kind of, I don't know, something like hit me then. Wow, maybe I'm not so bad after all. So, but those are the type of things, the type of mischief that I would get into,
So why I'm asking is because, my son, Luca, he's extremely smart, right? He's just really off the chart smart. And he would keep it to get, like when he was at school, he was a really good person, but he kept it all in, and then he would come home and he just needed to let loose.
Right.
And whenever, like, fortunately for us, it was like he just went outside and ran around the house like crazy and tossing basketballs, and so to get rid of all the energy of having to kind of contain himself.
Of course.
And so that's why I was asking, right? Is it that you were just like trying to be good and trying to, like, we're so smart that you were a little bored?
Yeah, I think
and you had no different outlet. Like, I don't know, right? I'm just, because
it's true. There was a sense of, there was probably some boredom. Look, I used to come home from school in those days, this was obviously before computers, internet, all this other stuff. What we had was the television. You had the TV. You could go home and watch TV. I had to get out. I didn't do my homework. I would come home 3 o'clock, whatever it was, threw the books in the house, and immediately I was out the door into the local playground playing basketball, baseball, running around, football, whatever. And I'd be out till 5, 6 o'clock until I came home, and my mother's yelling at me, you have to do your homework. You have to, okay, Mom, don't worry, I'm going to do it. But this was, I couldn't sit still. I could not sit still. Even to this day, now that I'm retired, everybody asks me, well, how's retirement? I go, yeah, I mean, yes, I have less hassles with, serious things at work and things like that. And I don't have to commute. I used to get up 5:30 every morning and be in the operating room at 7 o'clock. And, it's a long day. Yes, I don't have to do that anymore, but I miss being together with other people, with my colleagues, with other patients, and interacting with them. I miss that part of it. So what I do now, and which I've been doing for a long time, I sing in a band. We have a summer house in Pennsylvania, and I'm in a band up there. So I'm their lead singer, if you believe that. And so we do that. We sing at senior citizens' homes. We do like open mic, and we do some other, whatever local place is willing, they're getting free entertainment. So we do that. I've also been involved for many years with my local temple with shows that we do. So, I've had the lead in many shows, My Fair Lady, The King and I, South Pacific. And this is something I've been doing for about 25 to 30 years. I started actually with my daughter, who was 10 years old at the time. And my wife kind of pushed me to audition with her. And that's how it started. And I've been doing it ever since. And I'm also in a local choir. So we rehearse with the choir, start every September, and do things with them. So that keeps me busy. That's the stuff that keeps me busy. So if I sit in the house, I got to get out. I can't, I can read, and that's fine. But then after a while, I just got to get out and do stuff. And the other thing that actually Susan and I are both doing, we're involved with the Holocaust. I don't know if Susan told you, the Holocaust Center in Glen Cove. We're training to be docents to lead school groups through the museum, teach them about the Holocaust, anti-Semitism, and all types of bullying and racial discrimination. So I'm actually in the midst of training for that. So I'm going to probably start in September, October to lead some school groups through the museum, you know, and describe things to them. So that's what's been occupying my time currently.
Which is beautiful, because a lot of that is still giving back, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's still in service, which,
yeah.
you know, it's just really, really beautiful.
Yeah. And I've always felt that I always feel like I have to give something back to society. You know, my parents are Holocaust survivors. I won't say I had a tough upbringing, but my parents, you know, after surviving what went on after World War II as teenagers and everything, it was very tough for them as immigrants to come to the United States. And my father was a tailor, and then he became successful in the real estate business, you know, but he worked hard. And I didn't see my father much. He worked all day, and Saturdays and Sunday, you know, he would go out with his friends and everything. So I didn't have, you know, sometimes that connection that, you know, father and son tend to have. And when I had children, and I had 2 boys and a girl, when my kids got older, I felt, no, you know, I'm making time for them. I was coach in the Little League and coach for this and this. You know, I made sure that I interacted more with my kids, you know, and I tried to be a good role model anyway. So all that taught me a lesson. So it's interesting when I look back at everything that happened to me. But one interesting thing, I know you sent in some questions of it. It was funny. I always respected women. It's funny when you mention women are the gentler sex and they're looked upon as, you know, and I go, you know what? When I was younger, I never felt that. I always thought the women were the stronger ones. The women were smarter, and that's part of it was why I was afraid to talk to women sometimes, or girls. I felt that they were so much better than me, smarter than me. You know, it's funny how that evolved, at least in my perspective. I've always respected women, and I always feel that women are, to me, the stronger sex, at least from my perspective. I never felt like, oh, you know, the men are like, yeah, you're right. The men think themselves like that, but that was not my case at all. I always step back as, you know, okay, you're right. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, I think that's one of the beautiful things about having these conversations is this exact thing, right? Like, I think we each see the other one in different light, right? And so the women are over here, you know, we have our own fears about, because we see you in the areas where you do um um where you do have your expertise, right? So like maybe you're, you know, men excel in cars, and where that's maybe not my forte, right? But maybe women excel at, you know, but we each are on our other side, like putting ourselves down and only seeing the best in the other person, right? When if we could
Mhm.
really own that we each have strengths and weaknesses,
Absolutely.
what are we afraid of, right? But we don't usually start. I think as we go through life and get experiences, we get to learn this, but I'm not sure why we don't get that when we're younger, right? Like,
You know, we're, like you say, when we're younger, we're immediately put in a box. The girls go play with the dolls, the boys are out with the sports, and you know, and the girls are the weaker sex. You got to protect them, blah blah blah. You know, that's what happens from a young age. You know that, and it's hard to break those preconceptions or misconceptions, if you will. So you know, but as you get older and you mature, you realize this is nonsense. You know, women are strong enough to do this and to do that, and are excel at certain things that men certainly cannot do. That's why it made me crazy watching the Olympics this year in Paris with all this transgender stuff that's a little questionable. You know, I don't want to get political or anything, but you know, women should, you know, stay with their sports, and men should stay in their sports. And if there's some kind of a gender thing going on. They really need to straighten that out. And, it's just not fair for everybody. So that kind of stuff made me a little concerned, even though what's going on in Long Island with those transgender things. I think they need to deal with that in a fair fashion for everybody.
These are big, heavy topics.
Yeah, I know.
Very, very heavy topics. So let's keep those.
I want to keep it on the less heavy side. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, Mark, what makes you come alive? Like, what are you most passionate about?
You know what? It's funny. I saw that question. I think it's when I can perform with people. That's why even when I was in the operating room as a surgeon, you're the head of the team, you're the captain. You have the power. That's you. And when I, as I told you, when I perform, when I sing with the band, I'm the lead singer. I go out, I'm in front of the stage, and everybody is looking at me. Or like when we do a performance with our shows, our musicals that we do, and I get a lead part. That gives me. I mean, it's a lot of work. Absolutely a lot of work, a lot of rehearsing, but it gives me a lot of pleasure to do that and feel like, oh, okay, now I'm in control, and hopefully I'm doing a good job. But that's what really gives me a lot of pleasure and makes me smile. Yeah.
I have a big smile on my face listening to this conversation, because my mom was a nurse and uber involved in community theater in our neighborhood, sang in a local community theater. She sang in a local choral group. She sang in the choir in our church. Like, that's what made her come alive, was performing, whether in all of those. So it just brings back really fond memories of my mom. She's been gone over 20 years, but that just was what made her come alive. Like, she loved being of service to people, but putting her on stage, oh yeah.
It's a great outlet, and it's a great emotional release. And that I get a lot of always get a lot of play. You get nervous, of course, performing. That's a normal thing. But once you're out there, there's such an adrenaline rush that you really, you feel great, especially afterwards. And if it goes well, and most of the time it does, you feel like, oh, wow, so that's fun.
Well, and it's that energy exchange too, right? Like, you're putting that performance out, but that energy you get back from the audience is...
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You feel it. I mean, you just, as a performer, you feel it, and then later, of course, if you've done well and everything, and everybody comes over and congratulates you, oh, I can't believe you did that, or you're, wow, because you're not, obviously we're not polished performers. We're amateurs doing this, and people are like, shocked. Wow, I couldn't believe you could sing, or you could act, or you could do whatever, and you get a sense of fulfillment, which is nice, So
really beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a multi-part question here. You can choose to answer one part. It might be one answer answers all of it, or you could choose to, however you want to answer this one.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned? Or, like, for example, what was your biggest challenge? What made you who you are today? What took the most courage? Or when did you take a stand for something that mattered?
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought about that. I think the biggest challenge in my life, and we talked about it before, was I'd never left home. I was 20 years old. I had never left home before. I was living at home through college. I was very sheltered. My biggest challenge in life was leaving my home and actually going to a foreign country and to speak a language and to go into a profession that, and to this day, people go, I can't believe you went to medical school and you did it in German. That's like astounding. How could you do that? I said, well, when I did it, I didn't think it was, I guess it was a big challenge at the time, but as I went through it, I adapted to everything, and it worked for me. But to me, that was like one of the biggest challenges of my life. And, the fact that I became a doctor, when I look back on my life and I say, how the hell did I do that? I was this crazy kid from Brooklyn and Queens who was constantly getting into trouble, and people thought, oh, this guy's going to be, he's not going to be, he's going to be in jail with the nonsense that he pulls. And suddenly here I am, you know, and of all things, I suddenly decided to be a surgeon. I didn't take like, you know, okay, maybe it could be a radiologist or a dermatologist, you know, or even a general practitioner. You examine people, talk to people, you know. But suddenly I go into this field where it takes a lot of skill and you know, it's not just you're diagnosing, you have to go in and cut something out, if you will, or whatever. And to me, that was amazing that I did that I had the ability. You know, I never thought that you know, I'm not the greatest person with my, you know, I asked my wife, you know, it's hard for me to nail put a nail into a wall to hang a picture, much less, you know, but you know, when I used to go into the operating room, I knew I was in control. I knew everything. I had everything planned out, how this is going to go. And that was a big challenge for me, at least from where I came from. I wasn't one of these super smart kids, you know, or had great talent at anything like that. And here I am practicing surgery, which, you know, really is a tremendous skill. And then after that, as I said, I became a gastroenterologist. I worked actually with the most famous person in the world who had developed the technique for doing colonoscopy and removing growths in the colon so that people could avoid surgery. I worked under him. He was at Beth Israel Hospital, and he invited me afterwards to become his partner. And I was doing all these procedures and working in the operating room. It was unbelievable. And to this day, I mean, people, you worked with, I know your name. I've seen you in the medical journals or whatever. And, you know, my partner was the famous one. I was just sort of, you know, on the sidelines, but, you know, people recognized me, at least in the medical world, of what I did. And to me, that was a big boost to my ego, because I always was very, you know, like I said, I was shy, but I also, I didn't have high self-esteem a lot of times in my life. I felt, you know, my parents, I got berated a lot for, you know, not being a good boy, if you will, not doing my work and not, you know, and just causing trouble. And that really hurt my self-esteem. So later on, to be able to overcome this was, you know, a big thing in my life. Yeah.
So many good stuff that we said there. But I'm still in awe of choosing to go to another country for college and having to learn a new language to do that in, and that you just so effortlessly was like, yeah, I could do this. Like,
yeah, I astounded myself. You know, I didn't know what the heck. And in fact, while I was in Switzerland, right before I started school, like I said, I went there in August and school started in October. And while I was there, my father called me and he said, Mark, you also were accepted to medical school in in Belgium, which of course, they spoke in another foreign language, or you could go to the Philippines and you were accepted there. They speak English there. And I said to myself, you know, Dad, I've been here for 6 weeks now. I like it. I've started to learn German. I don't want to leave. I'm going to do this. And I stayed. You know, I could have easily said, oh yeah, English, great. That solves a lot of problems and makes it much easier for me. But I said, you know what? I like this. I like the people here that I'm living with, and I like the town, and it just has a good vibe. I'm going to stay here. And that's what I did. I stayed there for 6 years, even though I was there with a few other American kids, and they all left, except for one guy who stayed in Switzerland. They didn't even finish school there. As soon as they had the opportunity to go back to finish school in the United States, they went back. And I said, no, I'm not going back. I'm here through the end. This is where I want my degree to say University of Bern, Switzerland Medical School, and that's what I did.
And the other thing I want to say is, like, back then, it wasn't that you just jumped on a plane, right?
Oh yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, I'm just gonna go home quickly because, you know,
I,
it was a
I,
completely different
I have to tell you,
paradigm.
it was such culture shock for me. I'd been on a plane once, one other time in my life to go to a medical school interview in Louisiana. That was the only other time I'd been on a plane. So now I fly into Switzerland and then from into Zurich, I believe. And from Zurich, I took a train or a small plane to Bern. And I get out of the airport. I have like one piece of luggage, if I remember. And of course, I spoke a little German, and there's a taxi there, and it was a woman. I had never seen a woman taxi driver in my life. And she says, in German, where do you want to go? And I said, well, University of Bern Medical School or whatever. Okay. She grabs my luggage, throws it up on the card. I get in, and then it's funny. She leaves me off at the Hauptbahnhof, the main railroad station in Bern. And I said, well, wait a minute. This is not the medical school. She says, you go in there and you go upstairs. The school was just above the railroad station. So I had to wander through the railroad station and go into the school. And then when I got into the school, here I am. Yeah, hey, I'm a new student here. Where are the dorms? I'm expecting like, United States dorms kind of thing. And and I went into one of the offices there. Somebody spoke a little English. I said, oh, okay, where is my dorm? Where am I assigned? And she looks at me and she goes, oh, no, school is out for the session. Doesn't start till September. We don't have any real dorms. You have to find your own place to stay. So I'm going, really? I mean, so I ended up going to a hotel in Bern and staying there for a week, right near where the famous Bern bear pits were, the Bärengraben. And I stayed there for a week. And then when I went back to the school, I started looking, there were postings for, if you want to live with someone. And that's how I ended up with this particular policeman and his family who lived not far from the school. So that was also like, oh my God, I was like totally naive about everything. Here I am going to medical school, not just going to a foreign country. I'm starting medical school. And I don't know what the heck is going on. So again,
Well, it's a completely different system.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like in Switzerland, like nobody stays in a dorm. They often they start university staying at home, and then after 1 or 2 years they move in with a group of friends, and that's what you do, right? It's just a completely different system than it is.
I had no idea. I thought, must be some kind of a dorm system there too. What did I know? All I know is I had an acceptance letter, show up on this day in this place, and that's it. Other than that, I knew nothing about the school. I looked it up. We didn't have the internet in those days, so it was a little hard to research. But okay, here I am. Hello, I'm your new student. Oh, okay, goodbye. You go find yourself a place to stay. See you in October. Oh, great. That was my introduction.
Wow. Wow, that's quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, that you went to a place where you don't speak a language, you have no idea what to expect. And still there's always like the next step forward and the next step forward and the next step forward. There's nothing else to do other than that, right?
Yeah, and if you apply yourself, you survive. It's funny. I actually, one of the things I did in Bern as a student, I worked in the student. They call Studentenkeller, like a student club. I was a disc jockey in the club, and since I was an American, the kids kind of that. Well, you must. A lot of this music comes to the United States before it comes to Switzerland. So you have you might know some of these things before us, so that might be good for us. And I used to go into the local music stores, and in those days, you'd listen to the records, and then you would decide, what you would play at the club and everything, and buy the record for the club. So I quickly assimilated into that kind of student life, and I really enjoyed it because I had never experienced that when I was in college in the United States. I'd go to school and I'd come home. I lived at home, and that was it. I didn't have anything to do with the school or dorms or anything like that. This was like totally so new to me. But sometimes you need that push to, get your life going. Not to be so sheltered. Yeah.
So tell us about the time when you took a chance for love. And it's not
For
necessarily
love.
romantic love.
Let's
Well,
see.
it could be romantic love.
It could be, but it doesn't have to be.
Again, like I told you, I was always very shy. And the fact that I never had a girlfriend in the United States. When I came to Switzerland, I was 20 years old. So I never had any kind of relationship. But I went to Switzerland and I started working, as I said, in the student club. I had my eye out for some of the girls there, and I actually met a Danish girl. She was studying to be a nurse in Switzerland, and I opened my mouth for the first time, and I said, "Would you like to dance or something?" And I was the DJ there, so. And she said yes, and before I knew it, we became very close friends, and that was first my first love, and my first experience with a woman was with that girl, and that I still remember that so many years ago. As I said, I was very shy, and I didn't try to put myself out too much, and for some reason that clicked, and that helped me later on with other relationships because I knew how to open my mouth. But before that, I was just like, oh, I wasn't the best looking guy. I was average looking. I didn't, whatever. And suddenly, somebody else liked me, and I felt good about myself. And this girl was a nice girl, and we had a nice time for a couple of years. I visited her in Denmark before I went back to the United States. That was my first true relationship, so to speak. Nothing like that ever happened to me while I was living at home or in college. So, yeah, that was my big break in life, so to speak.
Well, you went away and you went to a completely different place, right? For
Yeah.
me, it's like going to college, university, whatever you want to call it, is part of becoming who you're meant to be, right?
Yeah. And but it didn't help me here. And when it's funny, when I was applying for college in America, I actually wanted to leave. I told him I applied like to University of Arizona. We lived in Queens in New York. And my father said to me, "You're not going anywhere. You find a school right here." He wanted me to go to free college, like Queens College, Brooklyn College, all those were free. My grades in high school, even though I had skipped a grade, again, I was goofing off a lot, so I didn't have the best grades. I couldn't get into these free colleges, and that made my father furious because that meant and a lot of our friends, the kids would go to free college, so the parents obviously didn't have to pay anything. And here my father said, now I'm going to have to pay for you to go to college. So he was very upset. So yeah, of course, I got into LIU, so that's where I went. The funny thing about it is when I went to Switzerland to medical school, and medical school in the United States, even back then, was very expensive. In Switzerland, it literally cost me nothing. I was like 100 francs for the semester, plus my room and board, which was also like peanuts compared to what you pay in the States. So I said to myself, gee, my father maybe, he had to pay for me for college, but he got a real break with the medical school because 6 years, and he didn't have to pay much at all. So, I looked back at that and I thought, okay, so that's how that worked out, but yeah, I didn't want to stay home, but my parents said, no, you're staying here. You go find yourself a school here, get into free school. And I couldn't. Okay, but you're not going anywhere. We're not sending you to Arizona and these places. You're staying put. And then that was that. That's why I didn't leave home till I was 20 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, but then leaving home gave you the opportunity to
Yeah.
develop in a way that you couldn't if you would stayed.
Absolutely, because I was so sheltered at home, even though, I would go out. Of course, I went out with my friends and this and that. but I didn't have a car. My friends had cars, so I would go with them, but that was it. I only had that small circle that my parents didn't go on big trips and do stuff like that. Everybody was very close to home, and that's just the way we were raised. So, I had a younger sister who my parents doted on, more than me. Again, I was the older boy and I was a little wild, and she was the young, sweet girl, so I had a different upbringing. But, things work out the way they do. That's ultimately, I don't regret anything. I think I had a good life. I met a great woman, and I have great children, and now I'm sort of in the twilight of my career, so to speak. But it's still enjoyable, and we love doing things, and that's just the way life goes on. Life goes on. It's sad because actually today I had a friend of mine who I knew for many years, who lived in Great Neck, passed away, and he lived in Texas, and I didn't, obviously we couldn't go to the funeral, so I watched the funeral on Zoom this morning, and it's very, it was just very sad, and that's how, beginning and the end, that's just the way it goes. That's just the way it goes. Yeah.
Well, we are sorry for your loss.
Yeah, thank you. No, he was a good guy. It's sad, but that's life.
It is sad, and those always wake us up a little to
Sure.
spend more time with the people we love and make that more of a priority.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Mark, what would you say your superpower is?
My superpower, I believe, is listening to people. I'm a good listener. I hear what people say. I don't push my opinions or things on other people. I might express them, but I don't force people to, do what I do or whatever. I like to listen to people, and I think my father was like that way too. He was more of a pacifist. Listen to what people say, look for the good qualities. Don't you don't need to fight with everybody on every issue. Try to come to some kind of reconciliation, and that, to me, that I think is, for me anyway, the most important thing. Look at the good qualities of people. Listen to people. Be tolerant. That's one reason why I want to get involved with the Holocaust Center and the Museum of Tolerance. To try to make young people understand that there's terrible things going on in the world, and all this bullying and so forth. But you learn to tolerate each other. Who cares what your skin color is, what ethnicity you are, what your religion is. Everybody, that's their choice. Let them live the way they want to live. Be tolerant. That to me is the most important thing. And listen to people. Listen to when people talk. Listen to what they have to say.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Mark, what are you most proud of? What do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
I think my biggest accomplishment in life was raising a good family. I think to me that was the most important thing. I never would have expected that. When I, as I said, when I had left home and anything like that, that was like the furthest thing from my mind. But to me, raising a wonderful family, and hopefully, kids being as successful as they can be, and so forth, that to me was the most important thing, and my most important accomplishment. I mean, all this other stuff, being a surgeon and everything, of course, that's great, but to me, the family is number one, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Beautiful. What are you most grateful for, Mark?
Most grateful. I am most grateful for having a happy life, a wonderful wife, and a good support group behind me that always, has my back. I think to me that's the most important thing in life. That I'm most grateful for that. I just, without that, you have nothing. You're just a poor soul. So that to me is the most important thing in life.
Agreed. I think life truly is about surrounding yourself with the people you love and having as much good experiences with them as you possibly can. I think
Absolutely.
the rest of the stuff we get caught up in is
It's
silly.
absolutely, absolutely. You have your health, your family, your support group. That's the most important thing. And be tolerant of people. Don't look at their good qualities. Don't always look at, oh, he does this or she does that. Who cares? That's the most important thing to me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Mark, thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Thank you for your insightful view of the world. It was really a pleasure to spend this time with you. You are a true performer. I even think your mischievous time as a child was still probably you becoming a performer.
Maybe. Maybe you're right.
But thank you for the passion that you bring to this world. You're clearly on the court out there living life to the most, and it's really special to see that, especially giving back with the Holocaust Museum, and I'm just really inspired by you. So thank you so much for spending this time with us today.
Well, thank you, Christina. Thank you, Martina. It was a pleasure. This is really, it's good for me to talk like this. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much, both of you.
Truly an honor. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you loved this, please leave us a review, share with your friends, and please remember, you are extraordinary and you rock. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.